Hey guys, it's Sarah Schneider, nourishes.org. If you are new to the Nourish Mama or you're new to me, I'm a holistic nutritionist and I help mamas reset, heal, and nourish their bodies, minds, and hearts so that they can nourish all aspects of their life. Today I wanted to talk about food identity and the sanctity of our food choices. So this is kind of a big topic, right? And it's something that we're going to explore a lot in my Nourish Life program that starts May 7th. So I wanted to kind of touch on this because it's something that I don't really talk about a lot unless I'm working, with my clients one-on-one. But food identity, and I know that's kind of like a weird concept, and I don't even know if this is an accepted concept in the nutrition realm, but this is a word that I use. So your food identity is basically your nourishment blueprint, but through the lens or the perspective of who you are as a person, right? To your core, who you are as a person, and how that is tied to your relationship to food and how that is tied to your blueprint. So a lot of times we talk about, which foods work for your body and which foods don't work for your body in terms of food sensitivities and food allergies, and clearly this is an important topic. Like, for example, I am highly allergic to cocoa, so anything with cocoa butter, I can't even, touch chocolate or I will get hives all over my body, right? So that is a part of my food identity. I have certain limitations in and around that food, right? But food identity is bigger than just food allergies or food sensitivities or your biological nourishment blueprint. Food identity extends beyond, right? Extends beyond our biological need to include or disclude certain foods. Food identity is really rooted in who we are as people. Okay, so I have clients who are vegan and vegetarian and carnivores and omnivores, right? And I have clients who are very sensitive. They have a deep respect for animals and the humane practice of animals or I guess raising of animals. And that is all part of the food identity. And there's a certain sacredness that comes with it. I was talking with one of my clients and she's vegan and she really struggled with feeling accepted for that, right? And she didn't want to be high maintenance. And she didn't want to be the person at the restaurant constantly asking for substitutions and exceptions. And she didn't want people to see her as vegan eater and then automatically associate all of these connotations with what that looks like, right? Now she's going to start lecturing us on how we shouldn't be eating meat, right? And that's not necessarily what happened at all, but it's one of those things that she had this a little bit of fear in fully leaning into that because it was something that she knew would set her apart, and it was something that she had to really get clear with in her heart and know that this was something that is divinely connected with who she was as a person. And to do that, she had to live her truth, right? She had to be able to live her truth. She had to be able to say, you know what, I'm vegan, and this is why, and there's a certain sacredness to it where I don't even have to explain myself to people. Like, if we're sitting at a business lunch, like I don't need to explain myself as to why I chose that, or if it's because of health reasons, or if it's because of moral compass, or if it's just because of a religion, right? It didn't matter why she chose to do it because it aligned with who she was as a person. And this is what's really interesting. When we struggle with this, because I've talked to a lot of vegan friends and vegetarian friends, and a lot of friends, they want to lean all into the veganism, right? But there is this fear or this, you know, like the high maintenance or the convenience factor or whatever. They'll be out at a restaurant and they'll lean into the vegetarian side because it just got a little bit easier, right? Or they really do enjoy the cheese, but it's not aligning with who they are as a person. And then this is the problem. And this is why food identity matters. And this is why it's so important to really be able to tap into that and align yourself with your food identity. Because if we are choosing foods outside of what that food identity looks like for us, if we choose foods outside of that, we're automatically going to be filled with feelings of guilt and shame. It's automatically going to happen. I mean, if you grew up and you grew up kosher and like Jewish kosher, right? And pork is something that you were taught not to eat because it violates your religious code, right? And then you're sitting there eating a cheeseburger with bacon on it. You're going to feel guilty, right? If that's something that you really feel strongly about, that Jewish faith, that kosher part of the Jewish faith, because there are those that are in the Jewish faith that really, you know, accept all of those kosher, I wouldn't say rules or regulations, but guidelines, right? And then there are those that are practicing Jewish people that don't follow those guidelines. And either way, it's okay. But the thing that we really have to make sure of is that when we have acknowledged where our food identity is, when we have acknowledged what that looks like for ourselves, when we have to actually adhere to it. Because if we don't, we are going to have those feelings of guilt and shame bubble up within us, right? And if you are on a health journey, if you are on a weight loss journey, the last thing that you want for yourself is to have those feelings of guilt and shame bubble up within you. So if you're vegan and you're eating cheese pizza, or if you are Jewish and you're eating a pepperoni pizza, right? Or if you're a vegetarian and you think, well, you know what, maybe I should just have that dish because people are here and it's just fish and I think I'm okay with fish, but I'm not quite sure. And you start eating it and all of a sudden those feelings bubble up within you and you start to feel like the shame and the guilt, like, oh man, this is not aligning with who I am. Now I feel guilty about this and I shouldn't be eating this. And, you know, why can't I be a little bit stronger with who I am and be a little bit more stronger in my conviction of who I am? And all of those feelings bubble up, right? That's when your metabolic rate drops, right? So let's marry faith and let's marry the sacredness of who we are as people, right? Our souls, like our actual physical soul, that's kind of funny, but our actual souls, let's marry that with the actual science. And what happens is your metabolic rate drops. You burn it slower. And you store more of that energy for future use because you're upset, right? Because you're experiencing emotional upset. Even if it's all within you, right? Even if you don't really like experience it on the outside, even if nobody even realizes it, you're in turmoil on the inside and that's not aligning with who you are, that is going to cause a problem. So food identity looks a little bit different for everybody, and it's one of the things that we're going to work on in Nourish Life. We're going to work on how do we nourish ourselves in a way that fits our like soul blueprint, right? We talk about like the nourishment blueprint, but how does that nourishment blueprint really fit into that soul blueprint of who we are as people? And what does that food identity look like? Because it's going to look different for everybody. Just like everybody has their own unique nourishment blueprint, every single person also has their unique soul blueprint, right? And how they show up in their relationship to food, how they choose food to nourish themselves is going to look completely different. You know, a lot of times I ask people when they tell me like, oh, I'm vegan, or I'm vegetarian, or I'm flexitarian, or whatever they say, right? I ask them, what does that look like for you? And the reason that I ask that is it's kind of a similar story. So my hairstylist, she jokes around how if someone says, I want an inch cut off, she goes, what does an inch look like to you, right? Because some people say, this is an inch. Some people say, this is an inch. And an inch looks a lot different to a lot of people. And it's the same thing for labels. So a lot of times when we talk about our food identity, we use a label, a very, very, you know, I guess, specific label that society has given us. So whether you're like, if someone says they're vegan, I can pretty much guarantee that there's going to be an absence of animal proteins and fats, and then there's going to be an absence of dairy and anything that an animal would make, like honey, right? But some people say that they're vegan, and then they feel confident and comfortable with eating honey because it's not actually damaging the bees, right? It's not something that they're having to actually physically get from the animal, right? It's just kind of a side, like a byproduct. So some people feel comfortable with that, and that's great. And then other people, you know, are vegetarian, and then every once in a while they'll eat a little bit of fish because they feel comfortable about it, and that's okay too. So there's a difference between food identity and then food labels, okay? And really it's about figuring out what feels right to you, what connects with your soul, like what aligns with who you are as a person, and how does that show up in your relationship to food? Because like I said, if you feel feelings of guilt or shame, it's not going to show up. You're not going to be able to show up in your relationship to food in the same way, okay? Also, let's talk about the sanctity of food choices. So like I was mentioning earlier, there is a certain sacredness when it comes to food. There is a certain amount of sacredness that is attached to not only our relationship to food, but our relationship to faith, our relationship to the world in which we live, right? Our relationship to Mother Nature, our relationship to the environment, right? It's all interconnected. And there is a certain sacredness to that. So when someone says, there was this issue that came up, I noticed the other day in a group, and they were talking about food choices, right? And someone said, you know, hey, this is vegan, except for just don't use that. And somebody said, well, that's kind of offensive to me because, hey, Stacy, this is kind of offensive to me because that's not vegan. If it has chicken in it, it's not vegan. Yes, it's dairy free, and yes, if you omitted the chicken, it could be vegan, but it's not a vegan dish. Like, you can't call it a vegan dish. And it makes sense to me only because I know that there is so much more depth to that than just like, oh, well, I don't eat meat or I don't eat dairy, right? There is a sacredness to it. It's almost like a faith-based experience. So calling it something can be a little bit, it doesn't feel so good, right? It doesn't feel like you're in alignment. So there's a certain sacredness to your food choices. And that's okay. Like, it's supposed to be like that. If you think back to years and years ago, okay, I'm going to say like biblical times, but it's the same time period. It's just years and years and years and years ago, okay? That's when we were using food as a sacrifice. And this happened in all kinds of different religions, whether it's whether it's the Jewish faith, I couldn't say that properly, Jewish faith or Christian faith, or even if you're pagan, there are certain sacrifices that people made, right, with food. So you would sacrifice a goat or whatever. But here's the deal. It goes deeper than just like the sanctity of it or the sacrificialness of it. I don't even know if that's a word, but it goes deeper than that, because at the time, think about it, food was not as secure as it is now, right? So when you are actually sacrificing something to a higher entity, right? You're sacrificing this goat or whatever it is that you're eating. You're also sacrificing your security in knowing what you are going to eat for dinner, like how you're going to feed your children, because you have the faith that it will all come full circle and that you will be okay, that you will be taken care of and everything like that. So that's why it goes beyond just eating food. It goes beyond the the sacredness of like, you know what, I really identify with veganism, or I really identify with vegetarianism, or I really identify with, you know, I'm an omnivore, whatever it is. But it really goes deeper than that. It's understanding that there is a certain degree of sacredness in whatever foods that you choose, because it honors who you are as a core person. I was working in a restaurant, my team leader offered a customer a fish or egg alternative. The customer arrogantly spat out that it's not vegetarian. Oh. So here's the deal. I see this a lot, and food is a big deal to a lot of people. People have no idea that food is not just about food, right? And that's what we're talking about today. Food, there's a specific food identity. There's a part of you that is connected with food in a way that it's not just about the physical, biological nourishment. It goes beyond that. It goes into religion. It goes into faith. It goes into connecting with your soul person, right? And it also goes into like the sanctity of it, right? Like there's people that sacrificed certain foods that they would have eaten because they wanted to show that they were strong in their faith to whatever higher entity it was, right? And so I think that when we see that, it's someone that may not feel confident in their ability to show up with those differences and know that it's okay. Instead, they want to educate, or they want to like in a way like talk down to other people so that other people will realize that this is a big deal, right? And it is a big deal, but we don't have to do it like that. Flexitarian works for me. I can't bring myself to eat fish roe. Oh yeah, that's really gross. Or fertilized stuff. Oh, okay. That's funny. And that's the thing, is everybody's food identity is going to look a lot different. So Stacey, for you, you're like, well, I can eat seafood. Is that what you're saying? Like I can eat like a fish fillet, but like eating the fish roe, it just doesn't align with my moral compass, or like it just doesn't make, I just don't feel good about it. It feels awkward. It feels uncomfortable. I feel like I'm eating something that should have been able to have a life of its own and grow into an actual fish, live a happy fishy life in the sea and then eat it. Is that what you're saying? Because I feel like there's a lot of people like that. Offered a customer a fish or egg. So that's the thing. That goes back to the whole idea of not everybody's definition of what the vegan label is their definition of what the vegan label is. It's the same thing with you know, the vegetarian label or the Flexaitarian. Every single person has a unique definition of what that label really means, and it's based on their own personal food identity. It's based on what they feel comfortable and they feel like aligns with them. So that's why I think it's really important to be open to other people's, you know, food identities, and that they're always evolving, right? So somebody who was a omnivore their whole life and then started really, you know, more or less identifying with that vegetarian lifestyle, and they really enjoyed it and it felt really good to them and it really aligned with who they were. And then they started, you know, growing and evolving as a person, and then they said, you know what, I'm okay with meat. I just want to make sure, kind of like you were talking about, Stacey, like, or I was kind of talking for you, but kind of like that whole idea of like, I'm okay with meat, but I need to know that these animals were raised in a humane way and were also sacrificed in a humane way, right? And that is the difference between maybe them shifting into that whole, you know, I'm going to buy it from somebody from a farm who I know has the same shared values as I do, and then I'll be okay with eating it. But I'm not just going to go eat any animal. Like I'm only going to eat these animals that I know have been raised in a humane way, and that really their values, the people who raise those animals' values, align with my values, right? For me, it's because of as above, as below, as within, as without, which I interpret as everything is connected, and also try to live with seasons. Yeah, exactly. And so I think that that's what's really important about this whole concept of food identity. It's understanding that you have this nourishment blueprint, but you also have this soul blueprint. And your soul blueprint, yes, it's always, you're always growing and evolving as a person, but I think, and I don't know, this is just my own personal belief, but I think, yes, even though you're always growing and evolving as a person, your soul blueprint, the essence of who you are, has always been the same. It's just you growing and evolving as a person is you getting closer and closer and closer to aligning yourself with that, soul purpose. Does that make sense? So yes, as we evolve and we grow, it's not like we're changing, it's that we're actually getting more in alignment with who we are as a person and who we were meant to be. And we are that thing when we're little, right? And then society starts coming in and parents start coming in and all these beliefs and expectations and considerations and thoughts and all these outside forces starts telling us that we need to be this or we need to be that, or we need to be less of this or less of that, right? And then we start shifting into somebody that we're not quite. And then usually the older we get, the more free will we start, experiencing. And then we're like, hey, actually, I think I'm more like this. And then we spend our entire lives trying to get back to that soul purpose, right? Yes, that makes sense. Becoming more authentic with ourselves and selves. Yes. And that's why I'm going to do this Nourish Life program starting May 7th, is because this is the kind of stuff that we just, we don't spend enough time and we don't have a lot of access to this, right? To actually setting aside that time to really connecting with our true authentic selves. And by connecting, the more and more you connect with your true authentic self, the more you are in alignment and the more likely you're going to become who you're supposed to be. The more you are who you're supposed to be, the more that you're going to see all the goodness come into your life, right? The more in alignment you are, the more goodness that you're going to attract because you're in alignment. And that's how your food identity, your nourishment blueprint, it actually fits into your soul blueprint. So this is where it connects, right? And our food choices are kind of like a side effect of that. Our food choices are a piece of that. So does that make sense? I hope this is like driving with you guys. Why does this matter? And that's why it matters, guys. It matters because every single time you choose something to put into your body, to nourish your body physically, you're also nourishing your soul. Like, not to get too deep on a Monday, but you're also nourishing your soul. So you need to pick something that is in alignment with who you are. Oh, good, I'm making sense today. It's Monday. And yeah, I was super tired because Miss 8 is turning 9 on May 5th, and she had her slumber party here Saturday night, and the girls were up until all hours of the night. They were up until 1 o'clock, and then they finally went to bed. And then at 3:30, I went up there, and they were up again. And I'm like, what are you doing? And they're like, oh, we woke up. And they were wide awake. And I was like, oh, you need to go back to bed. Like, you guys need to go back to bed. And so they went to bed until about 6:30. So I'm like still so tired. In fact, both of my daughters went to bed at 7:30 on Sunday night, and they woke up at 7 this morning. So they were exhausted. And the little one actually fell asleep at 5:30. She missed dinner and everything. She slept for almost 14 hours straight. So that was awesome. But yeah, I'm exhausted, guys. Yeah, I know. I don't know what they have. But they did, I mean, it was a birthday party. I gave them too much sugar, but every time I would give them something sugary, I was like, okay, go outside and play, go run, go get all that out before bedtime, So yeah, I think it was the sugar. And I'm pretty sure that all of them probably passed out when they got home because Miss almost 9. She had a project due today, and so she also had to do her project that afternoon, and she was like, I can't even glue, it's so much. So yeah, it was good times. So if you guys have any questions on food identity or the sanctity of food choices, how that relates to your faith or your religion or your soul purpose, or how that feels for you, let me know. Also, there is a certain sacredness to food that I didn't really get into, but there's also this idea that, and it was one of my friends, she's this beautiful Jewish woman, she was talking to me about this one day, and it really resonated with me, and it was something that her, you actually got to do food shopping, we had all day to do it, Mom decided to do it now, of course. Enjoy, Stacy, go get your food. One of the things that she really helped me or give me perspective was from her what's it called? Rabbi. She has a really amazing rabbi mentor, and she was talking about the sanctity of one animal giving up their life to nourish another person, right? To nourish ourselves, right? So like if we were going to eat a burger, that cow gave up their life so that we may be nourished. And there is a certain sanctity in that, right? There's a certain sacredness of that this animal is giving up their life so that you may continue to live yours. And you don't have to be, super religious to see the sacrifice in that, and to see the appreciation in that, and to know that there is something bigger than just eating that burger, and to be really appreciative and grateful for that sacrifice so that you may nourish yourself and live the good life. So one of the things that I know that concept really resonated with me, because it was something that I grew up with. My dad was a hunter, and it was always really important that when he hunted that we, ate all of whatever he hunted. So whether it was venison or turkey or pig or whatever it was, it was really important that we utilize all of the animal, that we ate all of the animal and all of that, it didn't go to waste. And it was the exact same concept that she was talking, even though I'm Christian and she's Jewish, it was the exact same concept. It was just it was packaged in a way that really resonated with me. And it's one of those things where, my kids may waste mac and cheese. My kids may waste a few green beans. But the one thing that I do not want them to waste, and the one thing that I don't feel comfortable wasting, and I am a big proponent, if you are one of my clients, you know this, I'm a big proponent of saying it's going to waste inside the trash can or it's going to waste inside your body. Either way, it goes to waste. But one of the things that I really have a tough time about is wasting an animal protein, because that animal actually sacrificed themselves so that you can nourish yourself and live, right? And so that's part of this food identity. So one of the things we're going to do in Nourish Life, we're going to talk about all the different ways to nourish ourselves, but we're also going to really focus on this food identity. We're going to really focus on the sanctity of food, the sacredness of food, and how we can honor that within ourselves, and honor this in different ways. Honor it in the ways that really resonate with us, because we're all going to do it differently, right? My folks that are vegan, or kind of like lean towards that vegan label, they're going to honor themselves, and they're going to honor the sanctity of food and the sacredness of the foods differently than, let's say, me, who eats animals, right? Everybody's going to approach this from a different angle, from a different lens. But the key is that it's, as long as you think into how the food honors your food identity, then it's all good, right? It doesn't really matter what label you have. It doesn't matter what religion you follow. It doesn't matter what spiritual, faith that you have. All it really matters is that you are honoring who you are, and that food identity is aligning with your soul purpose, with who you are, the essence of who you are and your soul, right? And I know that's really big for a Monday, so I hope that resonates with you. And if you guys have any questions, let me know. Again, we're going to talk about that in Nourish Life. It starts May 7th. If that's something that you want to do, let me know. It's 9 months long. We're going to focus on nourishment, mindfulness, emotions, limiting beliefs, self-care, and self-love. And we're going to focus on all of these themes in 4 dimensions. So physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual dimensions. So all the different depths of ourselves, basically. And once you grow and evolve on all the different depths of yourself in all of these different themes of our lives, then you're going to grow and evolve exponentially, and you're going to see so much more progress in aligning with who you are. And if you're on a weight loss journey, if you're on a nourishment journey, you're going to find that it's a lot easier to do this when you're aligned with who you are. So that's why I created Nourish Life, is so that you can get into alignment with who you are, so the other stuff just kind of happens easily and effortlessly. So if that's something that you want to do, message me. I do have time this week. My calendar's a little bit more open this week than typical weeks. So if that's something that you want to do, message me, and I'll put my calendar link on here as well. So anyways, I hope you guys have a fantastic Monday. Let me know if you need anything. Bye, guys.